Good morning, KOTA territory. Welcome back to another Between the Lines book club. I'm Mimi Herrick, and this is Chloe, and we are talking about our August pick. I almost said September. It's still August. It's not quite fall yet. Realmbreaker by Victoria Aveyard. If you've been following along, go ahead and grab your book, grab something to drink. We're going to get into it really right away. So I guess starting off overall, what did you think of the book just as an overview? Like, what's your rating for it?
I'd probably give it almost 4 stars.
Okay.
Which I think might be the highest so far for a monthly pick for me. I enjoyed the book, and I think Victoria Aveyard's a great author, and I really enjoy her writing style, and she does a really great job at building a world and bringing it to life. But I do think part of the reason why I liked it so much was because I knew what to expect going into it.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely something you have to be ready for. We were just talking about this before we were on, but you know, if you go into this expecting something like Red Queen, it's not really going to be that for you. But if you go into this expecting fun, fantasy, big world adventure, then I think you're going to be pleased with what you've got. I think I would give this a 4. I had a really fun time with it. I really liked our cast of characters. I thought that the banter was fun. And about halfway through the book, I started listening to the audiobook instead of reading it so I could crochet. I'm going through a crocheting phase right now, but so I was listening to it and crocheting, and that was really, really fun. I think the audiobook was great. The voices they had for all the characters were fun. The delivery of the lines was great. I think that's why I liked the group dynamic so much. So I think that's kind of one of the things I wanted to talk about getting into it. What did you think about like sort of the first part of the book where we're introduced to our cast of characters?
I think the very first part is a little slow.
Yeah.
To be very honest, it took me a little while to get through that. I did like how we started off with something pretty emotional. You know, Andy's going through it in the beginning of the book.
Poor Andy.
And is really struggling, and I liked that because it felt like the author's not shying away from something difficult or something that may be sad. And while I prefer main characters don't die off, I always like little hints that the author's not scared to take someone away from us, you know?
Yeah.
And having that was really cool. It was just a lot of information.
Yeah, I think the world building aspect of this as you're in the first part of the book was a little bit complicated and hard to get into, but I find that with most kind of more adventure-y fantasy books, that tends to be the case because you have to get all this information in the first 100 pages before the story can really take off. But once they all started meeting each other, like Dom and Coraine and Sarasa, like when those three were together, then I was like, oh, okay. And I got a little scared when we had pirates in that first part. I was like, oh God, are we just normal girls who collect teacups? Like, I don't know what's gonna happen here. I thought that was also something fun that I was thinking about with Andy is when he picks up that teapot, I was like, are you the lost prince from, are you our lost?
How many teacups are on that ship?
How many teacups were there? Were you sending them back to anyone that you maybe called Tress in the Emerald Sea? I don't know. But yeah, I really liked all of the characters, I think, here. One of the more fascinating characters to me that we get perspectives of, but you know, not as much as the other cast, is Erida. And I think she's a very interesting character to look at because we're introduced to her in the beginning of the book with Andrew telling his story to her. And she believes him kind of, but not really.
Yes, she's an interesting character. I think having the whole band together essentially really felt like almost, if anyone out there's played Dungeons and Dragons, kind of like having characters assemble and then like starting the adventure. Everyone's a little low level, everyone's a little maybe not super skilled or super compelling in anything, but they each still had their own unique little traits and they were really different from each other. So starting off, I thought it was very good in terms of I knew where we were and I knew where I stood with the characters.
Oh my gosh.
And I wasn't confused about anything that was going on. And I also felt like there was so much room to grow along with the characters and watch the plot. Because if you start with characters that are already, you know, insane powers, can do anything, the best of the best.
Yeah, it gets a little difficult.
You got to put in a lot of work to convince me that this plot is really going to move forward.
Yeah.
And the plot isn't just going to be them having no struggles, no issues, and just overcoming whatever problem.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting also that once everyone was kind of brought together, we had our first sort of big betrayal plot twist happen. Yes. That moment, what were you thinking in that moment when Tara Stan walks into this hall and she's like, yeah, that's my husband to be.
That's the new man.
Art launched.
Yeah. I thought it was fun, but only fun because I'm a reader, not a character.
Yeah.
I think that it happened a little sooner in terms of, big betrayal, something happening, than I expected from this book because things had kind of moved a bit slow. So it was really cool to have that right away of, I was taken by surprise a little bit. This is new, this is a little exciting. I won't say I was totally surprised because I just knew you got a group this big. You got all these people together. Someone is bound to do something a little dumb.
Yeah, and honestly, when all the characters got together in that initial way, I was like, oh, perfect, we're all together. We're gonna fight this like evil dark army all together and it's gonna be great and I know exactly where this story is going. And then this big betrayal happened a lot sooner than I expected. I expected there to be some kind of betrayal happening in this story, but I didn't expect it that soon. And the fact that Erida, it made sense for her character to do something like that, I think was more compelling with this betrayal than others that we've read in other books,
I would agree. One of the highlights that I felt carried throughout the book was the decisions made by the characters felt like their decisions. With Erida,
it made sense.
She wasn't set up to necessarily be like the sharpest, knife in the drawer. But at the same time, we do get a strong sense of her ambition, her want, her need for these things.
Like, great queen.
Yeah.
And that makes sense that she would get with the evil villain who's promising her the universe.
Right. So I wasn't taken by surprise in that sense, but I did like the fact that when the betrayal happened, when we get this shock, I didn't go, wow, that's really out of character, or why would she do that? I went, yep, that makes sense.
That does make sense. It made sense for her. I think another character that I really enjoyed throughout the story was I loved Karain. I loved the pirate's daughter not being allowed to go out into the sea and sort of taking that and that chip on her shoulder, and then she's going on this big adventure and being the chosen one, which I thought was just a really interesting thing that we don't. I mean, the chosen one obviously we get a lot, but I liked the way that they set it up as she's just. Her mom's not letting her. She wants to rebel. This is her rebellion of going away, like that sort of thing. So I did like that.
One of the notes I made about her being the chosen one is that she's not overwhelming. She's not super cool. She's not super strong. She's not super skilled in anything. Sometimes the chosen one can just be a girl, you know? And I did appreciate that. And I liked the fact that she did rely heavily on the people around her, on the other characters, on the other group, to learn some basic stuff.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, I think it's interesting also because typically, like you said with those chosen one tropes, you think the classics, right? Like Harry Potter is a chosen one. He's this all-powerful wizard. He's good at everything. You know what I mean? But yeah, she was really relying on everyone else. And even in the end of the book, when they're having this big battle and trying to close the spindle all together, she still is needing everyone's help. Like, it is a huge team effort to get her to where she needs to be to do what she needs to do. And she's helpful in these situations, but not nearly as helpful as a character like Sarasa or Andri, who have all this combat training.
I got really strong Lord of the Rings vibes throughout the whole book, but specifically with having her as the main chosen one character, because it does really give those vibes of, oh, you're just a hobbit from the Shire, you know? What are you, what skills do you have? What are you actually capable of? And at the end of it, it's, well, they're capable of learning from other people, relying on other people, supporting other people, figuring different things out. And so I like that it wasn't in your face, she's super fantastic and amazing all the time. Like, she's just a person.
Yeah. And it kind of felt nice that she was regular in that way. Moving on to another character in our sort of main band here, Sarasa. I thought it was like, you know, obviously your stereotypical, like, I don't need anyone's help, I don't need anything from anyone, I'm this assassin. And I think that was done well because she ended up needing a lot of help from everyone else. And I thought that you know, that reliance on other people is always nice to see in a character that's so incredibly independent.
I agree. She was probably my favorite character overall. I felt like she was really vibrant, had a lot of life, had excitement, and I really felt her emotions. But I also like the contrast, like you said, of her needing help, of needing kind of the other people around her.
Yeah, and I wanted to get into, so supposedly I've heard from you that Sarasa and Dom are supposed to be our like romance subplot. I wasn't getting vibes like that at all, but maybe later in the series this is gonna...
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that either. I had actually learned that from watching some TikToks about the book. And after reading the book, I didn't get those vibes at all, which is fine because the book, the plot and everything, it didn't need romance at all. So that worked really well. But I guess I'm a little confused as to where everyone else on the internet was picking that up.
You know, I'd like for our viewers to let us know in the comments what you thought, if you thought that was a romance subplot, because I could definitely pick up on some of the enemies, you know, the beginning of an enemies to lovers like trope there. But it really wasn't reading to me that way. And I also read Dom as this like very much older being in kind of a more all-powerful way, not like in the like fae smut Akatar way.
Yeah. I'm not sure where people pick that up. And maybe it comes from if the rest of the trilogy, there's 2 more books.
Yeah.
And I will say with this book, I felt like we were just gearing up. We were leveling up our characters. We were kind of slogging through stuff. We're going through trials.
We're finding things out.
We're building our skills. We're getting gear.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing really did feel like a setup for the main fight that's yet to come.
Yeah.
Which it wasn't done in a bad way. And I think if you're going to do it, you should do it the way Victoria Aveyard did it. But I'm not sure that we really have a full picture of the whole plot at all.
No, not at all. I think that, throughout the rest of the books, this is definitely going to be an overarching like theme. It's not like some other fantasy books where there's such a contained plot of one book to the next. I think this is one where if you don't read fully thoroughly all 3 books, you're not going to get that full overarching situation. And then moving on to Dom, because I don't think we've talked about him yet. I liked him as a character. I thought he was fine as like this sort of elder, knowledgeable being that's like trying to gather all these people. I don't really have any particular thoughts about him one way or the other. He was just, not that he was just there, but like he kind of was there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he was super exciting. He wasn't a detriment to the story in any way. I didn't dread reading his POV, but also I wasn't thrilled when like I turned the next page and it was his.
Yeah.
So I feel like some of the characters, which part of it is, you just have so many characters. You have so many people in this group that you can't give them necessarily all the exact same emotions and thoughts and ideas, right? You have to vary it. And at a certain point, somebody has to be a little flatter, if that makes sense.
Well, I think it made sense also for his character to be that way. You know, you're reading his POV and it does really feel like you're reading into his brain a little bit. It's not so much you know, all these other younger people being like, we need to do this, I'm feeling anxiety about this. He's just sort of like, yeah, well, this happened and it sucks and we're gonna save the world and it's gonna be fine, but.
I also think it was a useful tool for showing us his lifetime.
Yes.
You know, compared to younger people, he's seen a lot more. He's done a lot more. Man's been around the block.
Oh my God, yeah.
He knows what's going on, and it's probably not the first time he's seen the whole world threaten to come to an end.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I did like how that was used to illustrate to me versus going, oh, well, he's he's so knowledgeable and he's older and this and that.
He just sort of was.
Yes, of course he's unfazed by this. Why wouldn't he?
I know, and then, you know, our final character, who we've kind of talked about a little bit with his tea kettle, and Andy, I don't know. Andy. He was a good addition to this, I think, even starting off from his point of view where we're seeing, you know, this sort of terrible thing happen. I thought was really powerful because you see just how young these characters are through that POV, I think.
I agree. And Andy just makes me feel bad. Like, you just want to
You're like, oh, buddy.
fix it. Yeah. And I like the fact that he was scared and he was nervous and had lots of doubts, but was still...
Yeah, he was fighting for
he
what
was
was
still
right,
going to do it,
despite what he'd been taught, which is follow Erida, follow the crown.
Right.
All of that. I thought that was interesting. I'm interested to see if his mom comes back in any way in the rest of the trilogy, because that was a huge part of his character, was being, like, his whole life basically was like, I'm caring for my mother, this is important to me, which is important that stayed throughout, but I wonder if that's setting us up for something potentially tragic in later books.
I am worried, but highly suspect tragedy is on the horizon.
I can't. I can't do a mom dying plot. That would be too devastating.
And he's been through a lot already.
He does not deserve it.
No.
We need to find a cure. Can we find a spindle cure for her ailment? And then I guess sort of now getting more into like plot points. We talked about that betrayal. I also want to talk a little bit about, you know, Erida deeper in terms of her POV after that betrayal. I thought that the way that the Victoria Aveyard wrote the wedding, what happened after, and his character, how they interacted, was very interesting.
I thought it was a little strange in like a good way.
It was off-putting. I liked it.
Very off-putting, which gave me a lot to work with as a reader in terms of, oh, okay, this is what's going on in this relationship. This is how this betrayal is kind of happening. Erida's looking at some consequences of her actions and things like that. But it was a little off-putting to read and a little strange, but I think it was done well. And to me, it felt very unique.
I really liked it when we started reading the part, you know, after the wedding, when she's like, all right, like, let's get this over with. We have to do this. And he just completely ignores it. I was so scared for a second. I was like, oh my God, are we about to get villain smut in a YA book?
Yeah.
Like, I'm terrified. And the fact that we didn't, and it took that route of sort of dismissive, off-putting, and you could feel Erida being like, oh, I think I screwed up here. Like, I think I made a bad choice. And she's starting to have these thoughts, but she's still feeling like, you know, again, because she's very young, she's 19. So she's 19 and she's getting married to this much older man who is an evil villain. And she's like, okay, what happens after a wedding? And there's one thing that a man wants from me, and it's my body. And then to not have that and be like, is there something wrong with me? Is it about, like, what's wrong here? And you can kind of see her going through those emotions as you get through this scene, which I thought was the perfect amount of weird and awkward that it would be.
Yes, and I will say I really appreciate Victoria Aveyard choosing to take that route because to me that conveys more, it tells me more, it shows me more about this actual real dynamic and the purpose behind this whole plot point versus her taking easy cop out and just being like, oh, and then they fall in love and they actually like each other or something like that.
I like the tension.
Yes, and I felt like it was cleverly done.
I also feel like it's more realistic too to that sort of like royal dynamic of like, yeah, I don't really like who I married. I did it for power.
I don't know you. I don't like you.
Yeah, we met 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that was an important part of the book that needed to be in there, because sometimes with these fantasy books, I feel like they try to make like the royal person end up in a loving relationship with whoever they end up with. And it is a little bit more complicated than that when you think about it in practice.
Just a little bit.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Is there anything that you personally had a problem with in this book? Like, what took the rating down for you, I guess, besides that slow first part?
I would say I didn't feel a sense of urgency.
Yeah, okay.
Which it does come from the fact that this is setting up the real plot. This is our introduction. This is us getting, you know, the cast and crew together and the whole 9 yards. But I felt like we had time. And in a book where the world is at stake, we're all going to be doomed, evil tyrants and, you know, all of that, I don't feel like I should have time.
Yeah.
And I liked the characters, but I do think some of their emotions were a bit more told and not shown. She did a really great job with the big stuff, but sometimes some of the POVs fell a little flat.
Yeah.
And I wasn't as engaged as I'd like to be. And I'll be honest, there were some times where it's just, I rarely put a book down. Like if I start it, I usually finish it in one sitting, sometimes two. But I put this book down a lot.
Yeah, I will say that that was something for me that was pretty difficult. I'm similar to you in that way. If I start a book, I'm probably going to finish it within 24 to 48 hours. But this one took me a while to sit and really chew through. And I think it's because sometimes when you're switching POVs that much, it gets a little hard to follow almost.
Yeah.
Because you get so used to being in one character's head that it just gets convoluted when you jump into another character's head and you're like, wait, hold on, what's going on? And you know, there was other betrayals in this book, like that whole jail subplot thing that was going on. I told you, I was listening to the audiobook at that point and I fell asleep for a little bit during that chapter just because I was like so not invested in that sort of aspect of things. I liked that they were getting chased in other kingdoms and other countries and whatever, but I mean, they got out of jail eventually anyway, so why?
Yeah, it was difficult because, as I mentioned to you, you know, before we started talking about the book, if I didn't know exactly what to expect going into this book, I would not have liked the book at all. Which I like Victoria Aveyard's work. I really like the Red Queen series. She did a great job with that. I like her writing style.
Yeah, she's a very talented author.
Yes. But if I did not know that the comp titles for this book were things of like Lord of the Rings and other big journey, epic type fantasies, probably would have hated this book.
Yeah, I think that TikTok marketing of it as some YA romantasy is not at all what this is about. I would say that even suggesting that there's a solid romance subplot is like questionable.
Yeah, it's very strange to me.
Again, I don't know how people got that. I was getting more romancy vibes from Andy and Coraine than I was from Sarasa and Dom, which is supposed to be the enemies to lovers situation. And Andy and Coraine had like, I think just weird tension because they're the same age.
Yeah, I think
that was really the only reason that I found them to have any sort of, you know, oh, he looked at me, oh, Andy, you know, like, I don't know. I just wasn't really getting that vibe from this book very much. But I do think that like maybe in later books we're being set up for something, which I could totally see happening in the future.
I'll definitely read the next two books. Like I'll finish out the series because I do think it's good. I don't think it's a bad book in any way. But as someone who's not necessarily into long epic type fantasies, it'll probably take me a little while.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's why I liked the book a little bit more than you did. Like I'm giving it the 4 instead of the little bit less, because for me, these like epic series are very compelling. Like I've told you before, I'm a huge Brandon Sanderson person. I like those big badonkadonk 1,000-page epic, emotionally devastating things. And I think that this could definitely go in that direction. And it wasn't like too much too fast. I think it was paced well if we're gonna have 2 more books of, you know, really building and stepping up the ante. Otherwise, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about this. Do you have anything else?
I don't think so.
All right, I haven't posted our announcement for this yet on Facebook or Instagram, but for September, we are reading The Lies of Locke Lamora. This is like, I don't even really know how to describe it. Thief, artist. It's very different. It's a very different book than what we have read previously. I know you can see the sticker on my copy. It was the monthly Barnes & Noble pick, but it does look pretty good here, and I was really exciting. He wants to be enemies. Like, it's looking very mysterious, and we haven't done something that's a little more intrigue in a minute.
Yes,
So.
and I'm super excited to read something by Scott Lynch. I've heard nothing but great things about him and his books, but I haven't read one yet, so.
Yeah.
I'm
And I will
looking
say
forward
that the texture of this is very floppy, so if you're a floppy book person, this is going to be for you. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this month. We'll see you back here next month on the last Wednesday of September. I don't know the date off the top of my head, but I will post the announcement on Facebook and Instagram shortly after we're done here.